Good morning. Thank you all for joining us today. I am Donna DeMarco, Executive Director of the Building Congress and Exchange, and on behalf of our entire Board of Directors, I'd like to welcome you to our AI in Construction webinar. AI is certainly the buzzword these days, and everyone in every aspect of our lives is trying to figure it out. But AI is not just about robots and ChatGPT. AI technology is having a profound impact on the construction industry, and it's assisting early adopters in improving speed, accuracy, and efficiencies within their offices, on the job site, and with their crews. We're taking on this subject because BCE is committed to continuing to foster growth and excellence in all facets of the industry. Our mission, it's pretty simple: promote business, make connections, exchange ideas. And today, we're exchanging ideas. We have a truly diverse membership, which represents the entire ecosystem of the construction industry. All will be impacted in some way by the technology advances we'll be talking about today. On your screen, we're highlighting our local partners, our loyal partners, and they're local also. These companies have provided additional support for BCE throughout the years. Their support allows BCE to bring you high quality programming, both virtually and in person. With the support of these partners and our solid membership base, our association continues to have financial sustainability. All of our members are actually listed on our website with hyperlinks to their companies. We want to continue to help our members do business, so we hope you'll use our website, bcebaltimore.org, as a resource. Plus, you can see all of our upcoming events. That's where the real connections are made. Okay, so now let's get started with our program. We've got a lot to talk about. Plus, we want to hear from you. So remember to pop your questions in the chat. Choose everyone on the dropdown so everyone can see your questions and the comments. I'd now like to turn this over to our moderator, Dan Audette from GWWO Architects. Hi, Daniel. The virtual stage is yours.
All right, thanks, Donna. So, like she said, I am Dan Audette, Design Technology Specialist at GWWO Architects. I'm going to be your host for what promises to be an insightful discussion, how AI is transforming construction. We'll talk about common misconceptions, practical applications, and we'll even look at how AI will shape the workforce in the years to come. Like Donna said, AI is no longer a futuristic concept. It's here, it's growing rapidly, and it's impacting the way we design, build, and manage construction projects. Yet with all the buzz around AI, there's still a lot of uncertainty, questions, and even some skepticism. That's why we brought together a panel of experts who are right in the thick of it, people who are not just talking about AI, but are actively integrating it into their products, projects, and practices. So to introduce the panelists, we have Patrick Hennessy, the Director of Scheduling and Analytics at Harkins Builders. And also from Harkins, we have the Virtual Design and Construction Manager, Carlos Zuluaga. We also have Adam Satino, Senior Manager and Solutions Engineer at OpenSpace, which is a technology platform that uses AI and 360 cameras to record, organize, and analyze site conditions throughout the life cycle of a project. And last but certainly not least, we have Brett Settles, Product Owner at Allied BIM, a software company focused on the integration of BIM and prefabrication processes. Before we dive in, like Donna said, please, we encourage you to participate. If you have questions during the presentation, type them into the Q&A, and I'll do my best to address them during or after the discussion. This is a very wide topic, and we want to cover a lot of that today. So I'll do my best to usher the conversation along as we wrap up on time. I want to begin by having each panelist talk a little about themselves, their work, before we get into the moderated discussion. We'll go alphabetically. We'll start with Adam, Brett, Carlos, and Patrick. So Adam, the virtual floor is yours.
Sure. How's it going, everybody? I'm Adam Satino. Just a little background on me. I did about 7 years in architecture and then 10 years in construction. 9 of those was director of VDC, where I started the VDC department at a mid-tier GC here in Boston, about $500–600 million. And we were early adopters of OpenSpace, one of the first 25 customers, the first enterprise customer. So I obviously believe in the product. So I decided to come over here and join the team, where I manage the solution engineer team. Been here about 3 years. The quick gist on OpenSpace is we are a 360 reality capture platform. And basically you wear a 360 camera on your hard hat, select the level you're about to walk, tap the plan where you're starting your walk, and then you just hit record and you walk the site like you normally would. And what we do is we capture 360 video at 2 frames a second. So every half second you get a 360 image. And once you're done with your walk, stop the recording, upload it to OpenSpace, and that's where our machine learning and AI comes into play. Within 20 minutes, you have all those thousands of images that you did on your walk plotted on your plan at every location. And then as you capture your site through time, you know, you can do cool stuff like doing side-by-sides of what it looked like back 3 months ago to today. So if you want to go back and look behind a wall that's been boarded up, see if there's blocking, find a valve, you can do that. We have cool features with BIM compare to see what was supposed to be installed versus what was installed and to check progress. We have some progress tracking features as well, where the AI, you know, analyzes the images to highlight where progress has been done or not done. And we're coming out with a lot more tools, playing around with our AI features. So I'll pass it on to Brett.
Yeah, so excuse me, everyone. So my name is Brett. I am the product owner of Allied BIM. I'll kind of wrap back around to that. I started my career in technology, but not the type of technology we're talking about today. It was mostly surveying and GPS, moved into infrastructure modeling and inspection, eventually then worked at an Autodesk reseller for many years, managed technology at an industrial firm for 6 years, and then worked at a software company known as Revisto for about 6 years. Then small stint of a CTO at an industrial company, and I've been at Allied for about 7 months now. What Allied focuses on is a very interesting concept. One of the reasons I joined is we are taking your models, your building information, and we are processing it with multiple forms of automation and practical AI, which is a term you'll hear me talk about today, in order to facilitate a lot of the manual work that goes into fabricating in the electrical, plumbing, and sheet metal space. So, you know, what we're trying to do is get people out of spreadsheets, get people into a platform that facilitates A to B. And in order to do that, we have to implement automation and AI, which is hopefully why I was invited today. So thanks, everyone. So Carlos and Patrick, go ahead.
I'll go ahead and start. Thanks, everyone, for joining today. My name is Patrick Hennessy. I'm our Director of Scheduling and Analytics at Harkins Builders. Just to give you a brief overview of Harkins so you can compare, you know, the companies you work for if you're also a GC on the line accordingly. We are a mid-sized GC. We're around 700 million a year, based primarily in the Mid-Atlantic region of the U.S. I've been here for about 7 years, and prior to joining Harkins, I worked in the consulting space, mostly doing project controls consulting for other general contractors before coming and working directly for a GC myself. And for the better part of those 7 years, what I've been focused on here at Harkins is our project controls practices and procedures, specifically surrounding scheduling, but also what we do with our data in general. And that's been an interesting journey. I mean, 7 years ago when I first started here, AI wasn't really even on our minds. Mostly what was on our minds was, how do we wrangle all of this data that we're generating? We had been using Procore for about 4 years or so, and we were just kind of getting to a place where we were developing standard processes around how we use Procore. We were incorporating other softwares into our business, and Carlos can talk to you about a lot of those other cool softwares that we're now working with, you know, Revisto and OpenSpace at times being some of those. And yeah, so now that we have gotten to a place where we've really done a good job of wrangling that data, standardizing our data input procedures, and being able to report out on the information that we're generating as a company day in and day out, we're starting to think about AI. And there's a lot of things that go into that. And it's obviously been something that's kind of taken the world, not only this industry, but the world by storm in the past 2 years. And so we're happy to share some of our experiences. We've started to brainstorm around this with you guys today. And there's a couple prompts here that we'll go through, but then really want to hear questions from you all and hear about what you're thinking. And hopefully we can share some of our experience that will help you all as well, as you are considering the same things in your day-to-day.
Thanks, Patrick. I'd like to add, of course, I'm the VDC manager for Harkins Builders. We're about 300 employees, and we are an employee own company. So I think that's a good caveat to add, so you guys can compare, for those GCs to compare yourself. I have about 10 years of experience in construction. I work when I first moved to the US for a small firm, about 12 employees. They, were using spreadsheets back and forth all the time. Then I went and did graduate school focusing on construction safety. That exposed me a lot to technology. Wearable devices was one of the big items at the time, and continues to be something that is more research, not necessarily as applied as I would have loved to. And I've been with Harkins for about 5 years, really impacting operations in the field as an engineer, using layout tools, some of those survey equipment, drones, doing BIM coordination, and in general also reality capture. So just trying to ensure that we are using that appropriately, and then it's having a positive impact in our job sites.
Okay, great. Thanks, guys. So let's start by addressing some common misconceptions about AI, specifically in construction. For instance, there is a belief that AI will take jobs from honest working folks. On the design side, when I'm asked about this, my mantra has been AI will not take your job, but someone who knows how to use AI will. How do you think AI will actually impact, and what are some other misconceptions that you've encountered? Carlos, I'd like to direct this first question to you.
Sounds good. So I wholeheartedly agree that AI is not going to take our jobs. I think that is the mindset of an employee, just the person focusing on their day-to-day tasks. But a good example I bring in, let's say as a company, you have limited resources, you have 10 people per project, and you have a total of 100 people, you can do 10 projects, right? But if you're able to be more efficient, maybe when you're collecting data, understanding how to do data analysis quickly using AI, that means that maybe instead of 10 people per project, you need 8, right? So you're just increase the capacity of your company by using these tools that make you more efficient. So this is especially true for what we do, which is the built environment, right? We're out there building physical things. So there's always going to be a need for people that can perform physical job. And I just don't think that we have enough automation integrated with AI, with other things that really we can say, hey, you know what? Go home. I have this robot that is going to do everything for you. We're just not there yet. I know this is the buzzword and what we all dream about in the future, but we're not there yet. We have to. This is very, very new for everybody.
And if I could just add on as well, I actually listened to an interview with the LinkedIn CEO a couple of weeks ago, and one of the things that he mentioned is that generative AI is likely to change most job skills by about 60% in the next 5 years. But what he didn't say is that it's going to take 60% of jobs away from us in the next 5 years. It's going to change the job skills. And then he went on to say that most jobs are set up as tasks that both can and cannot be automated. And really, I think how we set ourselves up in the various roles that we are in and companies we work for the future is taking a deep dive and an understanding into what are those tasks that can be automated and what those tasks that can't be automated are. And then making sure that we're setting up our employees and our colleagues who have those various tasks that can and cannot be automated appropriately to still succeed when some of their tasks ultimately are automated. So then where do we redirect those brainwaves? Where do we redirect that added time, those resources that we're getting back to become more efficient organizations? And I think that also kind of on a flip side of that, it's really incumbent upon the leaders of the companies that we work in to make sure that our people are prepared for this automation that is going to come. Carlos and I were actually just talking yesterday, and he was saying, one of his struggles with a lot of what he does in VDC at Harkins is that some of our people in the field get a little bit worried that, oh, this is taking a portion of my job away. I'm no longer becoming useful. And AI is going to do a lot of automating our jobs in the next 5 to 10 plus years here. It's really incumbent upon us to let our people know, to put their minds at ease that their jobs aren't going away. We're going to redirect those resources now that we have that back and become more efficient overall as an organization.
Dan, do you mind if I put a brief example here? So I'm going to really double down on what Patrick said and really kind of add a real life scenario to what he said. Whenever I started in infrastructure, I was doing a lot of sanitary, storm, underground duct bank installation, a lot of site-oriented stuff. And it was always one person, me doing it, right? And they would say, hey, we've got a piece of property. We need to know how a site's going to be laid out and arranged. Brett, give us options, right? And I'd say, all right, give me 2 days. I'll give you 5 options, right? With Bentley SiteOps, which is now a very old tool, that went from give me 2 hours and I'll give you 2 million options, right? And so it did exactly what Patrick said. It didn't take away my job. It gave me the ability to up my own quality 10, 20x. So just figured I'd say that and back Patrick up on that.
Yeah. I think another one is that people are thinking that AI can do it all, and people are quickly realizing that's not the case. You still need that human element in the mix. And recent example, not AEC related here, but I was playing around with those image generators. I have a yearly weekend away with some college buddies. I'm like, hey, I'll create a logo for this. And I prompted it to create an image of a golfer, Sunday River Classic, blah, blah. And it immediately came up with something decent, but not what I wanted. And then I spent an hour and a half trying to take that image and say, nope, add this, tweak this, an hour and a half taking that and trying to make it to be what I wanted. And then I'm like, I know Photoshop. It did a good job in that first few minutes of giving me an image that I liked, but I couldn't get it to be exactly what I wanted. So then I could just take that in Photoshop in 10 minutes and fix it. So it goes to that efficiency. And what Patrick said earlier, we're really good at creating data and sharing data now, but it's too much data for a person to go through. And there's a shortage in the industry. So if we can have AI get us 40, 50, 60% there, that's a huge win. But you still need that human element.
Yeah, it's like a augmentation of the employee, of the worker. It's more of a something increasing the quality of your work, the capacity for you to do work. So it's more like like I said, an augmentation. That's really interesting.
Well, how often are we putting out fires on a construction site, right? And you feel like once that first fire starts, you can never get ahead of it. But if you never have that first fire because you're being efficient and these tools are helping you not have that fire, then we'll be more efficient and be a better. Everybody shows that McKinsey graph with all the production and efficiency industry going up and then construction down here. And I hate that because it never follows up with construction is always a prototype. It's not a manufacturing plant. We're creating the same thing going over and over again. So that's why, again, I don't think it can ever be 100% because there's always changing conditions, different sites, different logistics, different materials. But if it can help us out there and be more efficient, again, a huge win.
For sure. We got a comment that I think is really interesting and worth sharing. A member has learned some basics for SQL and Power BI using Copilot is enabled Matt to tweak things without actually having to know the languages. Helps with JSON and using Power Automate to digitize and automate some processes, which is exactly my experience as well. Like I am an amateur coder trying to build apps on the design side, and my capacity and ability to create apps has just ballooned based on me being able to code back and to talk code with ChatGPT or some of the other platforms. So it really is introducing new skills as a whole. Very good. One of the things I want to make clear is that, let's be real. None of us on this call are data scientists. The majority of us are going to interact with AI through AI products. we're not data science, we're not developers. So how are big firms with resources investing in AI, and what happens to smaller firms that don't have an R&D budget?
I'll
Adam, would you
start
like to
with, if you don't mind, Dan. I think I was thinking about that because, you know, even though we are a mid-sized organization, it's still, we don't have like a chief innovation officer, chief technology officer, or somebody that is like, AI is your responsibility. You're going to set the policies here, right? It's still something that, as I mentioned before, is very new to people. Everybody's trying to understand their position in it. And I think one of the best ways in which we, as individuals within the organization, can understand AI and figure out how it works with our processes is maybe partner with those product developers, right? Like platform like, you know, OpenSpace, Drone Deploy, and others that do reality capture. They are trying to develop tools. They have the resources in the back end to understand if they're doing machine learning or deep learning. Like, I don't need to know that. But then when we provide feedback of actual cases in a job site, like, it really helps them out develop a better product. So it's just having very open conversations with those platforms out there that are really doing the heavy lifting of implementation. And maybe it's incumbent on us, people that understand a little bit more of the technicalities of this, what happens with data exchanges, how are we going to manage shared data, is it private, is it not, to get to a level of comfort before we release it to everybody else in the organization, right? One common misconception, like, everybody can go out and get a ChatGPT or Copilot account. But what a lot of people don't know is that if you use the free version, that data is in the wild, wild west. So what do you share out there, right? Whereas if you pay, then your data is private. A lot of people don't know that, and it can have a negative impact for some cases, for some projects that are very private, for some of your, you know, business intelligence that you don't want to put out there in the wild, wild west.
Yeah, I think we've in the industry, it's going to be a while till there's AI in the companies themselves, AI developers, a bit, you know, some will have it, but we saw it with technology and AI, like with BIM and everything. It's a slow growth. So that's why there's, you know, companies like mine and Brett's that work with this stuff. So I think on the company, what the companies need to do is evaluate the tools out there and know what you're evaluating and how to look at it, and know what real AI is versus, you know, just people in the background. And that's where it comes into, if it's a tool that is saying it's using AI, but it's taken you 24 to 48 hours to get data back or results back, that's people in the background. That's not AI. It needs to be fast. And that's, you know, like our core product, the images come back in 20 minutes because of the machine learning and the AI. It's not a human in the background manually shaping the path and putting it on the plan. There is a QA/QC process if needed, if the AI can't figure it out, but you're getting it back in 20 minutes because it's AI in the background doing it. So I'd say that's something for the companies to keep in mind, is the speed of the results they're getting.
You know, Adam, you brought up a good point of why, like, companies like yours and I exist, and half of the companies that I've ever worked for. And I think I have a decent way to explain it. If you are I work for mid-sized construction firms. I've never worked for a large construction firm, right? My company was 50 people less than Carlos and Patrick's company, right? And we didn't have a innovation department, a CIO or anything like that. But what we found is exactly what you said, Adam. It's can these companies invest and develop what you and I are doing with our organizations? They can. It doesn't make fiscal sense to do so, right? And that is the big question. You know, if one of our clients asks me, like, hey, I want to implement, you know, what you're doing, you know, how much money am I going to have to, you know, have in the bank to do so? That number is going to be much more than they ever expected. Now, that being said, there's a lot of easy lifts with what I call like the practical AI that can be done with point solutions, right? This might be where the best internal R&D on AI is inside of a company, such as something like, hey, last time we did this mechanical room, we used a certain type of fitting and it worked really well. What was that? Oh, let me look through all the projects and pull it up and feed you that back, right? That's a very low hanging, something that a construction company can do with minimal budget. But if you start to go and do things like try to do Revisto internally, try to do Ally BIM internally, OpenSpace internally, you are going to find yourself broken with an unworking product in about a year and a half, unless you are dedicated to doing it like a software company would.
That's like a specific AI versus what we're trying to get, the dream of artificial general intelligence, right? Like it's such a massive endeavor to get to general intelligence, right? Like what you're doing is very specific AI. Like, I don't think that's a term, but that is, you know, like some of what we do in our business. We go and we specialize in this area and we have this focus because we cannot do everything. And right now that's where we are. There's this dream and this word out there that AI can do everything. No, it can't. It can't, right?
Well, it's kind of like, you know, build me a car, right? AI is not going to be able to do it. But hey, AI, tell me every bolt piece and give me instructions on how to put the car together. It might be able to do that.
That's fine.
If I could just add one thing too, on the product side, there's a lot of really, really smart companies out there working on AI products for construction. And if you as an organization on the actual trade side, the GC or the specialty contractor side, are interested in being a part of that, most of these products are actively in development right now and will continue to be for a long time. So don't be afraid to reach out to the software providers that you work with. Ask them about what they're doing on the AI product side, and then ask them if you can get involved in beta testing and providing feedback. They will absolutely love you, and you might even get a discount on your next renewal if you're proactive about that. Sorry, Adam, I don't want to put words in open space there, but no, seriously, the product folks are looking for feedback, and they're looking for feedback
Adam's
from
email
users
addresses.
like us.
I think that's the fun part. Like customers are joining us in the journey here. Like, you know, we don't, you know, Brett and I have a construction background. A lot of the people creating these tools and the engineers don't have that background. So we need to rely on our customers that are experiencing the pain points in the field to tell us what those pain points and ask the questions. Hey, is there something AI can help us out with this? Like Patrick, in your case, you're scheduling a ton of projects, right? Have you ever taken all your historical data of the original schedule versus what actually happened and dumped it into something that the next time you're starting a project, you say, my project is ABC, it has XYZ, give me a basis to start with. And then again, you know, might get you 50% there, you know, so that's
we've done that, but now what that's turned into is instead of having a junior scheduler take, you know, a week to do that analysis, I'm going to the likes of our software providers like Oracle or like Smart PM is one we use, like Procore, and being like, hey, what are you guys doing with schedule analysis and AI? And oh, by the way, here's 5 years worth of completed P6 files. And can you use this to help train your model and tell us, you know, how we can get some output here? And they are like 9 times out of 10 willing to do that and to accept, you know, wanting to be involved. So it's pretty cool.
I like the idea of, you know, and I think Adam brings up a good point. Like if I hire a lawyer, I want him to law. If I hire a dentist, I want him to, you know, dental, if that's even a word. But yeah, it's really just about, you know, finding those best in class tools and then latching yourselves onto them. I mean, every software company I've ever worked for, it's so much easier for us to create a valuable product that incorporates all of this by listening to the clients and implementing and improving upon the collaborative ideas of the industry. And AI is really all about that, right? Carlos, you bring up a really good point in that everybody in the industry that's using ChatGPT and construction on free accounts, thank you. because when I log into my when I log
Yeah.
into my paid account, I get all that information. You know, so I think the point that Patrick made, especially on that construction site, is companies like mine, companies like Adams, all of us, we are no longer practitioners. We are here serving practitioners, and I think that it would do us all a very good lesson to understand that we're not in the trenches anymore, right? We're helping those in the trenches. And I think sometimes people get a really rigid idea of what it's supposed to be, but they've only worked at 2 or 3 companies, and 2,000 plus construction companies exist.
Yeah.
So long-winded, but I wanted to kind of put my input on that. So thank you.
Yeah, it's definitely a change from, working with a big company like Autodesk and all of these small pop-up companies working. I mean, this is how I met Brett as a customer success representative, is they're listening. They want to provide us the best product. It's a mutually beneficial relationship to have. I love it when I'm talking to one company and they say, yep, that feature will be in by Friday. And that's just a complete change, which, I've got wish list items for Autodesk products that have been up there for 10 years. So very interesting. And that's just another one of those new roles that pop up. Customer success ends up becoming a new, more important role for these startups. This is a really good transition to talking about practical use cases. I want to get into some specific pain points in construction right now. Like, what are those, and how can AI make a difference there? What are some, let's say, practical, tangible, low-hanging fruit solutions that people can start at the conclusion of this webinar implementing today?
Mm-hmm.
So I can start here. I see like 3 buckets really that AI is going to impact, and I'm sure there's more, but this is just where my thoughts kind of went as I jotted some notes down. There's going to be practical uses in automation, which we've already talked about. There's going to be practical uses in things like predictive modeling, and then there's going to be practical uses in generative AI, things like co-pilots and generative design and things of that nature. So just some low-hanging fruit that I see, and I know there's certain products, going back to the product piece, that are already out there working on all of these things. But on the automation side, auto-generated schedules, auto-generated estimating and quantity takeoffs, automated proposals, things of that nature. On the predictive modeling side, and there's companies out there already doing this, like predicting safety incidents and when those are going to occur next. Predicting things like vendor risk that will help inform SDI programs and sub defaults and things of that nature. And then on the Copilot front, what I would love, and one of the things that we're working on actively in Harkins right now, is setting a large language model like ChatGPT up as a Copilot on our data warehouse. So we've worked extremely hard for 5, 6, 7 years now to get all of our data from every software system, and we're still not 100% there yet, into one centralized data warehouse, data lake location. Now that we've got it all there, and every new piece of data that we generate is going to there on a day in and day out basis, let's set up a large language model on top of that, so that if I have a PM that's working on a bid and they want to ask a question like, I have a project that has X, Y, and Z components with this client, show me similar projects with a similar client and similar architect that we've completed in the past 5 years, what their fees were, and the ones that did well, why did they do well, and what are some risks I should look for? Enter, right? Takes 2 seconds to type that, 10 seconds to type that, press enter, boom, goes through all of our historical data, finds those 5 projects, lists the risks. That's a really good start for things that we need to start be considering as we're working on that next bid. So for me, those are kind of the 3 pieces of low-hanging fruit, the co-pilots, the predictive analytics, and the automation side.
That's pretty amazing. That's all.
Yeah.
That's impressive. You guys have done that already.
Well,
No,
I think
we're looking on it.
It's more of a thought leadership process
Yeah.
right now, more than anything. But we're putting I'm happy you said that, because you have to put certain pieces together prior to getting there. And anyone who's listening on this call that's like, whoa, that sounds crazy, I can't wait for that, just know that you need to start taking steps with your data if you haven't already. You need to starting to think about the things that we're all talking about on this call right now as an organization to get to those outcomes eventually here in the next couple of years.
Yeah, I'll start with, I think low-hanging fruit is get familiar with any large language models that are out there, either it's Copilot or GPT. I think they're the most common, right? It's a great intern right now for me. Like, hey, you are stuck on how to write a post you have to do. Just give them a few prompts and it'll get you unstuck. It'll get you started, no matter what it is, right? It can do, like, you can feed files into it if you use the paid version, and it'll do some basic search for you. You can, again, do what an intern would do. It can also do data crunch. If you have a very complex, let's say SQL file, a CSV, you don't know how to process, I don't know, any type of data, it can convert it, or it can do the data analysis for you. You can ask them in native language questions that you would like to find. Also something that has become useful, I know we've talked about visual data analysis. So for example, you saw something in the street you really liked, or you're trying to find this product, you can take a picture of it and start feeding it a little bit of information, and it'll help you find what it is. I know with some other teams, we've tried that in the safety environment. Like, we put a picture where we know there's safety violations. Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. I would not fully rely on AI for finding your safety violations, but it's a start. It's a start to get you unstuck. And we've worked, like, one very specific one I'm working with is Drone Deploy. They, you know, when we fly drones and we get all of these data from them, whether it's an orthophoto or a 3D model, trying to identify using AI stockpiles. It is a work in progress. It's not perfect, but hey, we're partnering, we're going together, we're getting feedback. This time did work, this time didn't work. Yeah, it's getting there. It's something that I would not be able to do on my own. And then I think Copilot, I'm a little afraid of what Microsoft is doing too with reading everybody's data, and now their laptops are Copilot ready, because it sees too much from you sometimes, but it's like, it helps you, like, hey, what did I miss in my schedule? What is next on my schedule? Are there any important emails that I didn't respond to? Those are things you can already ask Copilot.
No, I love that question, Dan. And to further on what Carlos was saying, you know, someone like me, oftentimes I kind of like to, you know, go get down on AI sometimes because I tend to be more practical, but it does have some very big uses in that. For example, hey, a client calls us and they say, here's our fleet of equipment. You need to understand the specifications on these 6 pieces of equipment in and out. Can I do that as a person? Sure. Do I need a day and a half? I do. Right? With ChatGPT, I say, hey, here's a list of equipment. I need to understand how the dies work on all of it, what motors are pushing it, just all sorts of stuff that you would not be able to know off the top of your head. And boom, 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 it gives you a list, right? Next thing you know, you're off and running with this knowledge that took you literally no effort to get. You know, we go back to the site ops thing, right? As a civil engineer, I can provide 5 options with 2 days, or 2 million options, all costed in 2 hours. These are very practical forms of AI that almost teeter on the edge of rule-based automation, right? Like, it's interesting because I really feel like there might be a gray area there where, because in my mind, AI is when the computer makes a decision, and automation is when the computer follows a set of rules put in place by a human being. It's not really making a decision. It's basically kind of funneling options down to a point. But they can be confusing to the general user, right? Like, think about Clash Automation and Revisto. Is it AI?
It is not.
It's not, right? Or think about pack nesting cuts that we do in Sticks to Conduit. Is that AI? I could argue that it is, but it isn't. You know what I'm saying? All we're doing is just mapping distances to a known factor. So it's interesting. And when you hear about AI, there is low hanging fruit to be had, but some of the successes you hear in AI may not exactly be AI. And not to muddy the waters, but Carlos, I think you really opened up my mind in that low hanging fruit in AI may be sort of the higher end of rule-based automation. I don't know
Correct.
if
And at
people
some
agree.
point, so this is what we're talking about. If you're a very good coder, for example, I don't know if, well, who here knows about code, like you have a lot of ifs. If this, then that. If this, then that. While this is number is less than 0, do this, right? Like there's all these conditions which are automation. Those are code. But at what point it starts learning on its own and creating new rules in there, that's where you start having that transition. So that's, we're going back to like, who really understands that? What are we being sold at? Good code or good AI?
Yeah, I think Brett's practical point is a strong one. If it's not legitimately useful, who cares? And if it's creating work and not removing work, who cares? But there may be some work up front. Like you guys took a lot of time to take all that data and dump it into one place, but that's gonna now moving forward pay huge dividends. And it was similar on the architecture side, rolling out Revit. You know, the lead designer would sketch a sketch, and in one day or a few hours, you could draw something in AutoCAD and hand it over to him. But when we started using Revit, that was taking 2 weeks. And he's like, where's my plan? Where's my plan? I'm like, we're building a model. Hold on. You know, it's going to take a little more time. Going to take a little more. We finally got him his plans. He was happy. And then the next meeting, we just started dropping in 3D cameras, cutting sections. And then we pinned him up all up in the conference room. And he came in. Where did all this come from? It's like, that's what we're telling you, is a little upfront work there, but now we have all this and we can do this very quickly. And I think there's going to be a similar price. You have to train the AI, you got to provide it the data. There's going to be a little work up front, but to get those dividends moving forward.
And I'm so glad you brought BIM. I mean, if you look at the history of BIM, we've been talking about BIM probably starting the 70s, early 80s. Like that was already a term in research, in some spheres. It's 2024, it's 55 years later. There's companies that don't use it. And it was supposed to entirely change how we build, right? So hopefully that's not going to be the story of AI in construction. I hope it's quicker, but we also have to tone down the expectations and what everybody's selling you about, like, yeah, in 5 years, we're all going to be working from home, and I don't know, we're going to send drones to build our buildings. Like, yeah, calm down, calm down.
You bring up a good point, Carlos. I mean, think about 3D printing. They're just now getting to the point where they can build a home that none of us would live in voluntarily, right? Like, just we'll be real about that. And that's great progress, right? But when 3D printing came out, they were like, we're going to just print skyscrapers in 10 years.
Yeah.
Never happened,
Not yet.
right? So another example of, you get these really ambitious thoughts and then they get really, really turned through the ringer of the reality that we live in.
Mhm.
And then they come out the backside as something useful, but much less ambitious than it once was.
Yeah, that's really interesting. The couple of points from the conversation that I really want to reiterate is, you know, the amount of time that Harkins has put into getting their data warehouse together. It's this being proactive versus being reactive, which we've talked about when you're thinking about identifying safety violations. That is a reactive position. It's not proactive necessarily. That Carlos used the term intern. It's a good intern. I'm going to reuse that one. And then having that data storehouse up and together, it essentially makes the data much more accessible to general users. It's kind of a democratizer in that sense. Is everybody now has, using regular language, access to that same data that data scientists had to build dashboards for, and only they could do it. So that's really, really interesting. So I would like to kind of shift gears here to future workforce and role changes, which we touched on a little bit at the beginning. one perspective is that, just like I said, AI is set to be a significant equalizer, a democratizer, like an iPhone turned everyone into a photographer all of a sudden. Another perspective is that AI will do to construction what Google Maps did to the Atlas. And this is where Carlos would say, calm down. So what new roles do you think will emerge as AI becomes more integrated into construction? And what skills will be in demand? What would you say students should be learning to be ready to enter the workforce today?
It's a
I can
tough
go
one.
first again.
Yeah.
So, it's really interesting. I went to a job fair recently, right? And we were an industrial firm, and we go to University of Missouri Rolla, which is one of Missouri's biggest engineering schools. Like if you go to a civil engineering company in St. Louis or Kansas City, you are going to run into one of these graduates without a doubt. So we go to the fair and we're trying to get people for this. And we get the typical engineering students that come up and they're like, yeah, I want to do engineering. I want to do math and stuff. Right. And we're getting, 5 or 6 kids. We go to another job fair. We bring VR, we bring our models, we bring some exciting technology. Next thing you know, we have 25 computer science majors at our booth. Right. These are people that didn't even know that construction had this sort of capability or that they even had a place, in this industry. So, I think that with the workforce coming up, obviously we have a shortage, right? That's one of the things that Carlos has been really good about explaining is that AI is going to allow companies to keep capacity while they figure out how to bring new people into the industry. And to get straight to Dan's point, we've already seen a change with Allied BIM in some of our prefabrication cells. And that is the fact that you used to have an electrician to do everything, bend the conduit, run the wires, pull the wire. All of that happens in the field. When you go to a data-driven automation/AI process, you can now begin to not only hire operators that are much younger, but you also bring younger people into the industry to cut their teeth at ages of 19, 20, 21 on the machines in the shop, learning from the electricians that once did everything. So at that point, what's happening is you're running the same amount of product, fulfilling the same obligations to your clients, paying less for your staff because there isn't any to hire, and bringing in a whole new workforce of young people that are going to take on these new roles, like data, construction data administration, right? You guys have done it yourself. I've done it myself. Adam's done it himself. But don't you think it would have went better had you had someone to do it? So I guess my point is that I don't think we're going to be eliminating roles. We're going to be changing roles, and those roles are going to be more proactive versus reactive. I guess that's my bigger point there.
Yeah, I agree. I like to add to that, Brett, because I agree. Like when you say this last part, like we've all done data entry. Like if we would have loved to, I think nobody loves it to do data entry, but it's that evil we all have to live through. So hopefully we'll get to a point where we make some of those more valuable tasks. We have more time for those using some of these tools, right? And I think organizationally, like we haven't figured out what our policy is, right? Like that has to be one of those conversations you have to have with your entire. We've talked to some companies that said, yeah, we're not allowing any AI. We blocked the website, so we're building our own. And some other companies that have not talked about it, and it's a free world out there. So I'd say that the middle is always good. I love the middle. Let people experiment with certain guardrails. As Patrick said before, like provide knowledge of what some of the risks are, what some of the advantages are, but let people make decisions. And then, as you've talked about, hired and new hires and people that are coming out of the industry, I think this is also opening the eyes of certain organizations, like, hey, maybe we need to hire some people outside of the traditional civil engineering degree, right? Can we hire a data scientist, right? How about somebody that has mechanical fabrication knowledge to help with all of our MEP installations, right? Like, I think this is really opening up those conversations that what we've traditionally said, yeah, we just need a bunch of engineers, or, you know, we need a bunch of electricians and plumbers. Like, hey, why don't we bring someone else that can bring us a different perspective? Which is, I think, a side effect of trying to learn how to use AI.
Yeah, I think it's a good point. I mean, we saw it with BIM, right? There wasn't the VDC role until, 10, 20 years ago, and that's what BIM created.
Mhm.
And it's going to be more for the current roles. They're going to be able to do more value task stuff and be proactive, like Brett said. We had, when I was introduced to open space on the customer side, we had a team that was capturing every unit with a 360 camera. They would go in, they would write the room number somewhere visible, take one image, and go around the whole job site doing that. So a long time to capture that. Go back to the trailer. Where's Waldo? Search the images, put them into folder to find that room number, put them in folders. And then that's when I was introduced to open space, and I was like, oh wait, I can walk the floor in 10 minutes and I get all the images plotted on the plan in 20 after I upload it. Like, that's saving 4 or 5 hours for this co-op person. And also the co-op doesn't really know what to take pictures of that are issues. So now it's just capturing everything. But now that person can do more QA QC tasks. They can get ahead of submittals. They can be looking at stuff, and they can be learning more instead of just sitting there, dragging images to a folder. They can be out there on site, learning from the superintendent, learning from the PMs, what's important, what issues are, what they need to get ahead of.
I think that learning aspect that you just brought up, Adam, is so important, because when I started my career, they were like, here's a list of things that you do. Don't do anything that's not on this list. If you do something that's not on this list, you will be in trouble. Right. And it wasn't until I got my first job where we had someone manage with that guardrail mentality where I started growing and learning. So yeah. I think that those are important points.
All right, we've got about 5 minutes left, and I have one more prompt to get through. Just to add on, one of my biggest fears, and this might be just on the design side, is that, okay, we're all in competition to get work. We can now do work faster, more efficiently. Yes, we might do something else with that time, but we could also say that we do things cheaper and we cost less and to get more work. So avoiding that war of attrition is going to be a problem that we have to face as well. My last prompt here for this session has been a great conversation, guys. I want to discuss outcomes. What does AI mean for the field, which was really going to feel the impacts, especially when it comes to doing more with less, that shrinking workforce we've talked about. How do we measure, and then how do we measure the success, the ROI for those projects? What are the tangible metrics that prove that AI is more than just hype?
I can start with this one. I think that, everyone, especially when evaluating products, and I'm sure Adam and Brett have to deal with this all the time. Like, what's the ROI your product provides? What's the ROI your product provides? Think through automation. What's the ROI of this automation? Oh, well, I could go down this deep dive rabbit hole of, we ended up saving these 3 people 8 hours a week, and that equates to 500 hours of working time over the course of a year. But you can't still really dial in a number there, right? Because who's to say that of those 500 hours that were generated of time back, that all 500 were going towards something productive? And you just get yourself into a deep rabbit hole where it's like, is this really what you're looking for to make a decision on whether or not this is a good product or a good direction to go for your company? Instead, I would encourage everyone on the line who is starting to take digital transformation and technology seriously within your organization in the construction industry. I would encourage you guys to take a different approach. And for me, measuring the outcome of what we're doing with tech and with AI now is the feedback and the culture shift that we see within our organization. So when I look at our organization 7 years ago and I look at our organization now, we have people now that are actively reaching out about new softwares, pursuing new things, kind of going back to what we talked about a moment ago with the workforce, taking on this burden of continuing to learn, not just doing tasks that they were directly told. And when you see that cultural shift and your organization starts to say, hey, can we do this? Starts reaching out to some department, and for some that's your accounting department that's kind of taken on the data burden, and others that's the IT, some it's project controls. It varies wildly from company to company. There's no established framework yet within construction companies, I think. But if you just have a group starting to tackle these problems, and then you start to see others within your company, whether that be field folks, pre-construction folks, HR folks, reaching out and really embracing what is coming and learning about it, and then starting to implement it, and then asking for more. I think that you will notice that that is a cultural shift in the way that your people think. And that to me is a true and a great measure of success for setting yourself up for what's to come.
I think that's a great point. People always look at ROI on the money side, and it's always like, what's the ROI on the people side? Is this
Yep.
making your job better? Is this helping you build better? Is this making things easier? Does this get you home before 7 p.m., 8 p.m.?
Yep.
You know, and that's a different ROI, but that's keeping your employees, that's keeping people happy, that's not having to rehire, that's not training people. We're starting to see a shift here where it was always like a resistance against technology that's starting to shift where people accept it, and like Patrick said, are asking for it. And people are going to start to move to companies using technology, especially the younger generation. They're more attracted to companies using technology than aren't. So the people who aren't using it are going to be struggling with that workforce, where the people who are using it are going to have better luck adding people into their workforce.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I'll be real brief.
I'm sorry,
Oh,
Brett.
no, you're fine. Go for it.
We are at time. I want to be respectful of everybody's time. I'm sure what Brett had to say is really insightful, as it's been this entire conversation. Everybody's input has been. But I do want to take the opportunity to thank everybody for joining, watching us talk AI. Like this happens all the time. Get a bunch of tech, the architecture and construction nerds together, get some drinks flowing. We have these types of conversations just on their own. So hopefully there was a few takeaways for you guys. And I'd like just to thank BC&E for hosting this event and keeping these conversations top of mind. With that, I just want to say thank you, and yeah, enjoy the rest of your week.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, everyone.
Thanks, everybody.